Okay, so let's just dive right into this. What we're going to do today is pretty interesting. We're going to take apart a local company's website to understand a problem that's actually universal. How in the world do we fight back against an extreme environment just to stay comfortable? We're basically exploring the art and science of extreme climate control. I want you to imagine this for a second. It is 105 degrees outside. The sun is just relentless. And then, all of a sudden, the cool air just stops. Your home's most critical life support system, your air conditioner, is dead. Now, this isn't some hypothetical for millions of people. It is a very, very real crisis. So, what do you do? To get to the bottom of that, we're going to follow a pretty clear path here. First, we'll look at the extreme climate of our case study, a place called Hemet, California. Then we'll cover the most common ways these systems fail, how the experts fix them, that big question of repairing versus replacing, and finally, what all this means for their own home's climate strategy. All right, let's meet the main villain of our story today, the absolutely brutal high desert climate of Hemet, California. See, this is a place where your HVAC system isn't a luxury. No way. It's running a constant, punishing marathon just to keep homes livable. And listen, we're not talking about a once-a-year heat wave here. In the San Jacinto Valley, it's routine for temperatures to soar past 100 degrees for months on end. I mean, think about the stress of running an engine at full throttle nonstop from June all the way through September. That's exactly what these air conditioners are up against. But the fight doesn't stop when summer ends. Oh no, the desert delivers a second punch. Come winter, the night temperatures often plummet down into the 30s. This creates this massive temperature swing that stresses all the equipment in a totally different way. And that's really the core of the challenge, right? You've got this months-long summer siege where the AC is under this constant, heavy load. And then, bam, the winter shock, where the heating systems have to fight off freezing temperatures. This year-round, high-stress cycle is just uniquely punishing for any kind of machinery. So how exactly does this climate physically attack the equipment? Well, that constant stress just accelerates the wear and tear on crucial parts, like compressors. That fine desert dust, it's like sand in the gears, you know? It clogs up filters and coils, basically choking the airflow. And those crazy temperature swings make metal parts expand and contract over and over, weakening them over time. It's a full-on multi-front assault. So what happens when you have this constant battle? What are the direct consequences? Well, we start to see these really specific patterns of failure, the inevitable breakdowns that homeowners are just forced to deal with. And this brings us right back to that crisis moment. You're at home, the heat is just building and building inside, and you get that sinking feeling that something is seriously wrong. What are the warning signs? What tells you that a system that's been pushed to its absolute limit is finally giving up the ghost? Well, the most obvious one, and definitely the most alarming, is when your AC just starts blowing warm air. That is the system waving a giant white flag. It often means you're low on refrigerant because of a leak, or even worse, the heart of the system, the compressor, is finally failing under all that strain. Now, a more subtle clue is when your energy bills suddenly spike, and I mean sky high. This is a direct signal of inefficiency. It means your system is working way, way harder and burning a ton more electricity to produce the same amount of cooling. And this could be from something simple like a clogged filter or something much more serious, like your ducts leaking cold air into a 140-degree attic. And then there's this weird pattern called short cycling. This is when your system turns on, then off, then on, then off again every few minutes without ever actually finishing a full cooling cycle. Not only does this not cool your home, but it puts this immense stress on the compressor and wastes a crazy amount of energy. It's often a big red flag for a failing capacitor or refrigerant problems. Okay, so the system's broken, panic is setting in. This is where the hero of our story comes in, the specialist. So let's break down the actual process they use to diagnose all this chaos and restore order in the middle of a climate emergency. This quote right here from the source material, it gets right to the heart of what real expertise means in an extreme environment like this. When it's 105 degrees, waiting 3 days for a common part isn't just an inconvenience, it's a genuine crisis. A true specialist gets that, and they show up prepared. You know, their process is methodical. It's not just guesswork. It all starts with a systematic diagnosis to find the root cause of the problem, followed by a clear written estimate, so you know what you're in for. After the repair, they don't just pack up and leave. No, they test the system through multiple cycles to make absolutely sure it's working correctly under a real load. And finally, they walk you through what they did. This whole thing is about building trust and making sure the problem is actually solved for good. Now, after a diagnosis, you often face this huge question, one that involves thousands and thousands of dollars. Do you repair the aging, broken system, or is it finally time to just replace the whole thing? This is a really critical decision point for any homeowner. So, how do you make that call without just, flipping a coin? Well, professionals use guidelines, and one of the most useful ones is something they call the $5,000 rule. It's a simple piece of math that can bring a whole lot of clarity to a very, very expensive decision. So here's how it works. You take your system's age in years and you multiply it by the estimated cost of the repair. Simple, right? If that number is more than $5,000, replacement is probably the smarter financial move. So, for example, let's say you have a 12-year-old system and it needs a $500 repair. Okay, so 12 times 500 equals $6,000. That's over the threshold. It is a great rule of thumb to avoid throwing good money after bad on a system that's already near the end of its life anyway. All right, now for another super simple rule that could literally save you from a catastrophic failure. Have you ever heard of the 3-minute rule for your air conditioner? Okay, here it is. After your AC turns off, you should always wait at least 3 minutes before you turn it back on. Why? Well, that little waiting period lets the high pressure inside the refrigerant lines equalize. If you restart it too quickly, you're forcing the compressor to try and start against this immense pressure, which can cause serious strain and can even lead to immediate failure. It's such a simple piece of knowledge that protects the single most expensive part of your entire system. Okay, let's pull all this great information together. We've seen the enemy, the climate, and we've seen the solutions. So now, what's the proactive strategy you can actually use to win this battle for comfort in your own home? What's so powerful about this is just how simple these actions are. Change your filters monthly in the summer. Get professional maintenance twice a year. Set realistic expectations. These desert systems might only last 12 to 15 years. You gotta understand that things you can't even see, like leaky ducts wasting up to 30% of your cool air, are just silent energy killers. And hey, if you do replace your system, you have to insist on a proper load calculation, not just a wild guess based on square footage. And that really brings us to our final thought here. After everything we've looked at, the extreme stress, the common failures, the strategic maintenance, it kind of forces you to ask a really fundamental question about your own home. Is your climate control system a well-maintained asset, ready for the fight? Or is it a neglected, ticking time bomb just waiting for the next heat wave to go off?